The trial was like no other trial I would ever cover again. It was so bizarre. It was a time in our history that seemed to be attracting these kind of things.
In the summer of 1969, Linda Deutsch was a 24-year-old general assignment reporter with something significant just ahead, crossing paths with a petty criminal named Charles Manson. It marked the start of a career that chronicled the very busy intersection where Hollywood and the legal system collided. Deutsch looks back on her time covering a notorious trial for crimes whose descriptions would become shorthand for horror and madness.
The first act, of course, was the killings of Sharon Tate and the LaBiancas and all of the people involved. It was the combination of incredible gore and great celebrity, and it was kind of the story that had everything for the news media, everywhere, not just in Los Angeles, but worldwide.
On the night of August 8th, 4 of Manson's followers showed up at a rented mansion in Beverly Hills. He ordered them to kill everyone there. In the house were actress Sharon Tate and 3 of her friends. Tate was married to director Roman Polanski and was 8.5 months pregnant. All of the mutilated bodies were found the next morning by a housekeeper. They were scattered around the estate. A friend of the Polanski's caretaker was also killed.
Killings were horrible, gruesome. People were stabbed and shot. It seemed to have gone on for a long time.
More horror was not far off. The next night, Manson and 6 of his followers drove to a house in Los Angeles' Los Feliz district. A wealthy merchant couple, Lino and Rosemary LaBianca, were savagely killed.
It was horrific, and I remember saying, "Oh my God, it's happened again." And that set off a panic state in Los Angeles because everybody thought that now there were serial killers at loose who were going into homes and massacring people.
The public at large didn't know it yet, but the murders, the prosecution would later argue, were part of Manson's plan to launch a race war called Helter Skelter, named for the Beatles song that had come to obsess him.
Second act was the search for the killers, which went on for 3 months, and then their arrests, which were shocking in the extreme.
It didn't take police long to round up Manson and his disciples, a bunch of misfits fond of acid and freewheeling sex. A few days after the Tate-LaBianca murders, detectives found the clan at their commune, Spahn Ranch, a ramshackle movie set in the San Fernando Valley. But Manson and his followers weren't taken in for the murders. They were arrested for being part of an auto theft ring. Police dropped the charges. The suspects were let go.
The group was broken up last October after sheriff's deputies investigated a series of thefts. When the deputies raided the camp, some of the women were nude and some wore only bikini bottoms. The men had shoulder-length hair and wore beads. 8 children were with the group, and 2 infants were found to be suffering from malnutrition.
Police arrested members of the group, including Manson, again on auto theft charges.
We didn't know that they were involved in the Tate-LaBianca killings. We just knew that some group, some cult group, had been involved in a robbery.
Eventually, detectives made the connection that Manson and his followers were probably responsible for killing Sharon Tate and the others.
Reporter Ken Grau visited their former home, Spahn Ranch, and talked with foreman Mike Armstrong and his wife Denise.
Had you heard that these 3 might be involved with the Tate and LaBianca murders?
Yes, sir.
What were your reactions?
I wasn't surprised.
Any unusual things that they did while they were here?
Well, they were constantly taking dough from drinking wine and stealing cars and anything else you can think of.
He had been captured, he was brought in, he was wearing suede buckskin outfit with fringes, and his hair was all over the place, and he looked the role of what he was, this leader of a hippie cult. The third act, and probably the most important, was the trial.
Crazy became the norm for the Manson trial. It was a reporter's dream assignment, with bizarre plot twists unfolding almost daily. Manson's co-defendants were Patricia Krenwinkel, Leslie Van Houten, and Susan Atkins.
The trial was opening, and Manson appeared with cuts on his forehead in the sign of a cross.
It appears that he has a scab in the form of an X on his forehead in blood. It apparently was done with a razor blade. Manson has taken the position that that is a symbolic gesture indicating that he has X'd himself out of society at large.
Manson's antics continued. When President Richard Nixon declared Manson was guilty, directly or indirectly, Manson somehow obtained a copy of a newspaper headlining the gaffe and flashed it to the jury. He was trying to provoke a mistrial. It didn't work.
At one point during the trial, Manson got upset with the judge and propelled his little body across the counsel table with a pencil in his hand, screaming, "Someone should cut your head off, old man." He was grabbed by deputies and taken away.
The scene outside the courthouse was just as bizarre.
The Manson women were camped outside the courthouse for the entire trial, and they said they were going to immolate themselves if he was convicted.
LSD was the drug of choice for Manson and his so-called family. Acid had gone somewhat mainstream at that point, a symbol of the peace, free love, and expansion of the mind that had come to define much of the 60s. But in the Manson case, LSD took a menacing turn. It was associated with ghastly violence, madness, the wilting of flower power. In the trial, the Manson family members were prone to outbursts, LSD flashbacks apparently. Psychiatrists testified about the drug's symptoms and side effects.
The LSD was so prevalent that I think it was Patricia Krenwinkel who said, I took so much LSD, I was LSD. And it altered their consciousness. On November 20th, 1970, Manson decided he wanted to testify, but not with the jury present. And the judge allowed it because he felt that if Manson told his story, he would then have him tell it to the jury. But as it turned out, Manson refused. So all we have is Manson's testimony without the jury. And among the things he said were, "These children who come at you with knives, they're your children. I didn't teach them, you did. I just helped them to stand up. I have one law I live by. It's don't snitch, and I don't snitch. What they do past that is your responsibility."
On January 15, 1971, jury deliberations began following a 7-month trial. A few days later, on January 25th, the jury reached its verdict.
The jury enters. The girls are in jail uniforms. Krenwinkel and Van Houten with ribbons in their hair, smiling. Charlie is in a white shirt, dark blue scarf, goatee, shaggy hair, smiling at the girls. They are declared guilty.
Manson follower Sandra Good was among those camped outside the courtroom. Here's her response.
You know what? The system has just judged itself. It's just judged itself. It's all a matter of time now. We know where we're going.
Where?
To the desert. You can't kill love. You can't kill the soul. And the love and the soul is in the penitentiaries, and it's in the jails, and those brothers and sisters are coming out soon. And they're going to judge you as you have judged them.
The 4 defendants received death sentences. That didn't seem to bother them. In the end, they would be spared the death penalty, which California suspended in 1972. Instead, they got life in prison. On November 19, 2017, Charles Manson died in prison of natural causes. He was 83 years old.